Welcome to Lost in Revision. All of our content is public domain, literature, fairy tales, and folklore. All of our music is by Nathan Hubble and is used with his permission. Thanks, and enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to Lost in Revision, brought to you by us, the people, the big we, the ones who politicians should listen to because it's their job. So I'm here as always with two of my favorite humans, Angel and Polly. How are you today, Angel?
Well, I'm above ground, so that's good.
We did it!
July did its best to change that status, and yet I persevered.
That's what we do. How about you, Polly?
I am slowly taking over the Waffle House by populating it with my own loyal minions. Middle child has joined the ranks as a grill operator, so me and baby girl, that makes 3.
Well, if you take over Waffle House, you rule rural U.S.
Watch out, Joe Rogers. I'm coming for you.
Which could only bring about important improvements to the quality of life for the rural United States.
That is accurate. They'll, at the very least, be better fed.
Next step, the Yankees. You're getting your grits whether you like it or not.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the history and culture of this story?
Well, this is yet another tale brought to us by the Brothers Grimm. It was the 106th story in their famous Children's and Household Tales collection. It was translated into English by Margaret Hunt, and the 2-volume set was published as Grimm's Household Tales in 1884. And interesting enough, it had an introduction by Andrew Lang, who we also have many stories by.
We have those names pop up an awful lot.
The Grimms collected quite a few tales featuring cats.
Well, who doesn't want to talk about cats?
Everybody wants to talk about cats.
That's what the internet's all about.
Well, Margaret also wrote under the pseudonym of Avril Beaumont and was a friend of Oscar Wilde. Her daughter Violet Hunt also became a novelist. Violet never married, and some of them were kind of romantic sort of stories, and some of them were horror stories. It was kind of interesting.
So let's move on to the reading of the story, and then we can discuss it after.
The Poor Miller's Boy and the Cat, a story by the Brothers Grimm. In a certain mill lived an old miller who had neither wife nor child, and 3 apprentices served under him. As they had been with him for several years, he one day said to them, "I am old, and want to sit in the chimney corner. Go out, and whichsoever of you brings me the best horse home, to him will I give the mill, and in return for it he shall take care of me till my death." The third of the boys was, however, the drudge, who was looked on as foolish by the others. They begrudged the mill to him, and afterwards he would not have it. Then all 3 went out together, and when they came to the village, the 2 said to stupid Hans, "Thou mayst just as well stay here. As long as thou livest, thou wilt never get a horse." Hans, however, went with them, and when it was night they came to a cave in which they lay down to sleep. The 2 sharp ones waited until Hans had fallen asleep. Then they got up and went away, leaving him where he was. And they thought they had done a very clever thing, but it was certain to turn out ill for them. When the sun arose and Hans woke up, he was lying in a deep cavern. He looked around on every side and exclaimed, "Oh, heavens, where am I?" Then he got up and clambered out of the cave, went into the forest, and thought, "Here I am, quite alone and deserted. How shall I obtain a horse now?" Whilst he was thus walking full of thought, he met a small tabby cat, which said quite kindly, "Hans, where are you going?" "Alas, thou canst not help me." "I know well your desire," said the cat. "You wish to have a beautiful horse. Come with me, and be my faithful servant for 7 years long, and then I will give you one more beautiful than any you have ever seen in your whole life." "Well, this is a wonderful cat," thought Hans, "but I am determined to see if she is telling the truth." So she took him with her into her enchanted castle, where there were nothing but cats who were her servants. They leapt nimbly upstairs and downstairs and were merry and happy. In the evening, when they sat down to dinner, 3 of them had to make music. One played the bassoon, the other the fiddle, and the third put the trumpet to his lips and blew out his cheeks as much as he possibly could. When they had dined, the table was carried away, and the cat said, "Now, Hans, come and dance with me." "No," he said, "I won't dance with a pussy cat. I have never done that yet." "Then take him to bed," she said to the cats. So one of them lighted him to his bedroom, one pulled off his shoes, one his stockings, and at last one of them blew out the candle. Next morning they returned and helped him out of bed. One put his stockings on for him, one tied his garters, one brought his shoes, one washed him, and one dried his face with her tail. "That feels very soft," said Hans. He, however, had to serve the cat and chop some wood every day, and to do that he had an axe of silver, and the wedge and saw were of silver, and the mallet of copper. So he chopped the wood small, stayed there in the house, and had good meat and drink, but never saw anyone but the tabby cat and her servants. Once she said to him, "Go and mow my meadow and dry the grass," and gave him a scythe of silver and a whetstone of gold, but bade him deliver them up again carefully. So Hans went thither and did as he was bidden, and when he had finished the work, he carried the scythe, whetstone, and hay to the house, and asked if it was not yet time for her to give him his reward. "No," she said, "you must first do something more for me of the same kind. There is timber of silver, carpenter's axe, square, and everything that is needful, all of silver. With these build me a small house." Then Hans built the small house, and said that he had now done everything, and still he had no horse. Nevertheless, the 7 years had gone by with him as if they were 6 months. The cat asked him if he would like to see her horses. "Yes," said Hans. Then she opened the door of the small house, and when she had opened it, there stood 12 horses, such horses so bright and shining that his heart rejoiced at the sight of them. And now she gave him to eat and drink, and said, "Go home. I will not give thee thy horse away with thee, but in 3 days' time I will follow thee and bring it." So Hans set out, and she showed him the way to the mill. She had, however, never once given him a new coat, and he had been obliged to keep his dirty old smock frock, which he had brought with him, and which during the 7 years had everywhere become too small for him. When he reached home, the 2 other apprentices were there again as well, and each of them certainly had brought a horse with him, but one of them was a blind one, and the other lame. They asked Hans where his horse was. "It will follow me in 3 days' time." Then they laughed and said, "Indeed, stupid Hans, where wilt thou get a horse?" "It'll be a fine one." Hans went into the parlor, but the miller said he should not sit down to table, for he was so ragged and torn that they would all be ashamed of him if anyone came in. So they gave him a mouthful of food outside, and at night, when they went to rest, the 2 others would not let him have a bed, and at last he was forced to creep into the goose house and lie down on a little hard straw. In the morning, when he awoke, the 3 days had passed, and a coach came with 6 horses, and they shone so bright that it was delightful to see them. And a servant brought a seventh as well, which was for the poor miller's boy. And a magnificent princess alighted from the coach and went into the mill. And this princess was the little tabby cat whom poor Hans had served for 7 years. She asked the miller where the miller's boy and drudge was. Then the miller said, "We cannot have him here in the mill, for he is so ragged. He is lying in the goose house." Then the king's daughters said that they were to bring him immediately. So they brought him out, and he had to hold his little smock frock together to cover himself. The servants unpacked splendid garments, and washed him and dressed him, and when that was done, no king could have looked more handsome. Then the maiden desired to see the horses which the other apprentices had brought home with them, and one of them was blind, and the other was lame. So she ordered the servant to bring the 7th horse, and when the miller saw it, he said that such a horse as that had never yet entered his yard. "And that is for the 3rd miller's boy," said she. "Then he must have the mill," said the miller. But the king's daughter said that the horse was there, and that he was to keep his mill as well, and took her faithful Hans, and set him in the coach, and drove away with him. They first drove to the little house which he had built with the silver tools, and behold, it was a great castle, and everything inside it was of silver and gold. And then she married him, and he was rich, so rich that he had enough for all the rest of his life. After this, let no one ever say that anyone who is silly can never become a person of importance. The end.
And we are back. So, what is your favorite part or version of this story?
Yeah, I started off with the assumption that she took him home to be her can opener, as all cats need a human to open their cans. But in actuality, she wanted a cabana boy. Not too smart, but capable, strong, and pretty. A little recalcitrant, but follows instructions well. A well-trained pet.
The way that the cat let him totally win, but then she refused to surrender her cute little pet human, he was well-trained.
I found it interesting that she kept giving him tools to work with that were worth far more than the mill he was trying to inherit. The fact that not only did he do the work, but he always returned and gave back the silver and gold, I guess would have been a really strong character reference.
True. I really enjoyed trying to imagine the damage that those items would have sustained if those materials were actually used for those tools. My imagination went wild.
Oh, they were clearly magic tools, so they were more durable than the usual sorts of items.
Yeah, my brain doesn't vibe with just magic. It has to imagine what would happen to the materials, and that's just more fun. You just imagine trying to chop down a silver axe on a silver tree, and it just goes splat.
They're dwarf forged.
There most definitely had to be magic involved. It's the only explanation for both the durability of the tools and him being able to build a house that turns into a castle without another pair of hands to help him, lift and hold things in place. But
there was a bunch of cats aren't helping with that.
They're not helping.
It's like that scene in Sleeping Beauty where they make the cake and it looks horrible, and then they cast a spell on the cake and it looks beautiful. Except that
it's an illusion, but it probably tasted good.
Okay, there is one little section in the story that was another one of my favorite things that I wanted to mention, and it's because it made me think of the Aristocats. When they were describing the 3 cats that were playing the music at the dinner, and you had the one with
everybody wants to be a cat.
Yes, that was completely playing in my head when I read that part.
Fantastic.
With the horn and the everything.
I just inhaled a bug.
Protein.
Probably leave this in. Everybody's gonna know. I'm not editing this out. So, what is your least favorite part or version?
Besides swallowing the bug?
Yes.
Okay. I found the vague treatment of time in this story to be more than just a little annoying. There is no way an old man wanting to retire would have been able to wait 7 years for them to find a horse. I mean, it surely can't be that difficult to find a horse during an age where there weren't cars or anything yet. Then one night becomes 3 days. I mean, I understand that with fairy tales, by their very nature, they're a bit fast and loose with details and use magic to be the explanation to brush aside pesky details. But sometimes it gets to be just a bit much.
They're going by manga rules.
I think the old man was just trying to get rid of 3 pesky apprentices so he could have some peace and quiet. He's like, you know what? Just go give me the best horse. Just, the best horse wins.
It's the go boil water.
Times definitely seem to be exaggerated in fairy tales. Like, no one actually pays attention to what times really mean. They just throw out some arbitrary numbers for the sake of, I don't know, interesting storytelling. It was a while. Well, how long? Well, 3 days.
But if you get too specific, then the fans of the work always complain. And then you get plot holes and
academics.
So my least favorite part was the way that they treated Hans when he came back. And like, you haven't seen this kid for 7 years. He's literally outgrown his clothes. And just because he didn't have new clothes, you just go make him sleep with the geese? Come on.
Yeah, well, honestly, they were treating him just as badly as they always had. I think him not fitting in his clothes wasn't just because of the time that had passed, but the fact that during the time he was with the cats, he actually got to eat full meals.
True.
It's amazing how much a young person will fill out when they get plenty of food and exercise.
Not just young people.
I don't know. It's giving a lot of like peaked in high school.
But he was probably just high school age when he got back.
It was inexcusable for them to look at a person whose clothes are falling off of them and banish them to the goose hut rather than offer him something to wear. I did like that the princess was all, here's your horse, he promised you, but there's no way you get to keep him.
She basically said, you completed your silly task, but I put in all the work, so I'm taking him home with me. Enjoy your life, peasants.
That's a very cat attitude. So what are the original lessons that you think this story was trying to convey?
Yeah, the 2 clever apprentices were kind of bullies because they thought they were better, but in the end, they just circled back to their same lot without ever really succeeding or rising above it all. I mean, being clever gets you nowhere on its own. The main character, Hans, didn't get anywhere on his own either, but if he had been arrogant and spiteful, the cat/princess would never have taken him under her care.
True. Most definitely. Also, I think it had a lot to say about how the quality of character was of far greater value than a person's perceived status or ability or cleverness, character being of greater value than wit.
Yeah, agreed. It seems to be kind of just be nice to everyone in case they were as higher than you. Hans didn't care and was just nice to everyone, but I don't have enough faith in humanity to think that humans will just be nice like him.
It's a rare occurrence.
Yeah. In real life, trying to be nice to everyone tends to end up with you constantly being voluntold to do a lot of extra work.
No, yeah, keep that hand down.
Which, to be fair, also happened in the story. I mean, he was constantly chopping wood and building houses.
Build a house.
But his reward for all of that extra work was a lot better than some pepperoni pizza. Which is, the typical thanks for the help provided meal when you help friends move or, PTA meetings.
Hey, there's beer too.
I have
not at the PTA meetings.
My own
You don't go to the right PTA meetings. Though. It's a BYOB.
Bring your own booze.
Well, it's wine.
That's
usually,
the right kind of PTA meeting.
So what do you think the modern lesson would be?
Nice guys may finish last, but they finish best.
Ooh, nice. And, doing the best you can at any task, even if you don't want to do it, will eventually bring unexpected rewards. You never know who is watching and noticing.
Well, My take would be that from the stories we have read this season, if you meet a talking cat, trust it and just do whatever it says. These stories are just cat propaganda, I swear.
Oh, most definitely. The cat overlords surely influenced these stories.
I find cats to be trustworthy.
Typically, yeah. They're all about consent.
I do not find cats to be trustworthy at all. I am suspicious of every cat I've ever met.
You were
and rightly so.
You were just scarred by one cat.
They're not going to lie to you.
That's true. She did never lie to you. So in closing, what do you think happened after the story?
The two clever apprentices seemed like peak and high school types, but since the princess made off with the pretty apprentice and left the two clever ones with their mill and their lame and blind horses, and probably one of them or both of them inherited the mill.
They probably fought over it.
Well,
they probably lost the mill, went bankrupt.
Well, she did leave behind the beautiful horse, probably to make sure the miller could never try to reclaim his lost apprentice. I was sad that they never explained why the princess was masquerading as a cat. Or was she a cat masquerading as a princess? Either way, I think she and her young fella began a clandestine cat colony initiative to try and put cats in strategic locations to try and influence society by promoting gullible yet honest people into positions of power in order to provide stable homes for more cats to rule. Unfortunately, the need for working with gullible and easy to manipulate humans led to them promoting far too many witless men into positions of power, which eventually backfired on all of us, cats included.
Bombastic side eye. Well, based on past stories, they lived happily ever after, and the miller and the other two suffered. So I wonder if the princess had litters of kids. How do these enchantments affect DNA?
I don't know. And when Loki became a horse and gave birth to Sleipnir, he came out with 8 legs, so clearly mutations aren't off the table when transformations and progeny are involved. Maybe human babies, but with fur, or kittens that talk and walk upright and have a penchant for petting animals they ought not to. Now I'm picturing the cat nuns from Doctor Who.
Oh my goodness.
I read a book once where a guy was transmigrated into a fish in another world, and he ended up laying 4 eggs at a time whenever he gave birth as a fish, but only 1 baby when he gave birth as a human. I do love some impreg.
4 isn't very many for a fish.
Yeah, but they grew up into human babies, so it was a lot when they transformed into human babies.
Do they have gills like on Waterworld?
No, they could transform after they completed all their little... They had to do all the same quests that Dad did in the little transmigration thing to turn into people, and then once they hit a certain age, I don't remember what age it was, they could flop back and forth. It's actually a really fun little book. It's just... It's like sweet candy in between all the tragedy I usually read.
It's like, I want to be where the people are. Oh, never mind.
No, yeah. He came from the modern world and ended up in ancient China in a fish body. So, yeah. It's a little more traumatic than mermaids. I was trying to remember the name of the book. It's The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. Thanks for joining us today. Check us out on Patreon, and you can help us meet our small goal of breaking even and covering our expenses. Your support helps pay for all of the things that podcasting requires, and helps keep this show alive and growing. If you can't afford to support us financially, go give us a good review, subscribe or follow, and share with your friends and family. Feel free to fact check us and offer suggestions to make our show better for you. You can also send us an email at lostinrevisionpodcast@gmail.com.
There's a lot more waiting for us all at the end of the road.